Hi everyone, this is Melissa Keller, Director of Events and Project Management for Vineyard Worship. Let me tell you about a few things we've got coming up. Vineyard Soul, the Chicago Sessions, is now available wherever you listen to music. Vineyard Soul is the modern gospel expression from within the Vineyard Worship family. This highly anticipated project features the familiar and poignant vocal powerhouses Tina Colon Williams and Joshua Miller. We're so excited to bring you this project now in its entirety. Next up, our Thrive Worship Leader Training event starts September 22nd. We are thrilled to announce that well-known author and theologian Simon Ponsonby will be joining us, along with Professor Leah Payne, author Nikki Lerner, and many more. This is a worship leader deep dive that you won't want to miss. For more information, visit us at vineyardworship.com and find us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and now on TikTok.
Ferment.
The thing I've learned is on top of family, it's also shared encounters. So obviously when you have an encounter with the Lord yourself, but when other people share in that or they see that encounter, it's I don't know, man, it just takes that group to a different place with each other. And so whenever we spend that time together on Thursdays praying, it totally translates on Sunday.
Welcome to the Ferment podcast, conversations about worship and transformation. Today's guest is Kyle Howard, worship pastor from the Vineyard Church of Central Illinois.
Kyle Howard, what's up, my dude?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Oh, I'm good. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Well, hey, let's start here. I just want to get right into it with you. The super serious stuff.
Let's do it.
Everybody wants to know, how are the John Mayer licks coming?
Oh my gosh, dude. John Mayer.
I'm starting. Hey, listen, I'm starting there because the first time I ever met you,
yeah,
you were like on stage, kind of off to the side in one of these in between moments during worship rehearsal, and you're playing John Mayer licks.
Oh, dude, that does not surprise me. That was probably like 2016, I'm guessing.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, John Mayer is probably the main reason why I really started playing guitar and spending a lot of time playing guitar. So I'm still working on those licks though.
Okay, well, backup question to that. Can you play Neon?
I can. I don't have the right hand down. Like there's this whole crazy right hand technique that he does. That is literally like, even if he was not playing anything with the left and he was just muting the strings, he just has this like crazy technique, and you could just listen to his right hand. It's like a bounce and slap of the strings, and the left hand is crazy on its own, and he sings on top of it, and so he's a beast. But I can just barely play it.
Well, that's something I ask a lot of these guitar nerds and people who are into the riffs. Can you play Neon? And then my next question is always, can you play and sing it?
I've attempted it once. I think I posted on my Instagram too a few years ago. It was one of those where it's like, let's set this up and do like the 20th take and see what the best one was. Yep.
Well, you should repost it.
I'll repost it. I'll repost
it. Tag Vineyard Worship in it, and we'll repost it because everybody wants to see it.
I'll do it.
Okay, last John Mayer question. Do you like the new record?
I do, and here's what I'll say. I appreciate the new record because I think he's like tapping into something that's like, well, no one else is doing it, and I think it's like a collection of things that people have done, but he could easily fill up all that space with solos and stuff, but he's just like, you can tell he's being really intentional with what he's playing, and I don't know, I really like it. It's like 80s and meets 2020, it's crazy. So I appreciate it. I haven't actually listened to a ton of it yet, but what I've listened to, I appreciate a lot.
I actually like it a lot, if I'm being honest. And the last thing I actually want him to do on a record is to just fill it up with guitar solos.
Yeah.
So
100%.
I'm glad. And there's enough guitar solos on there for the guitar enthusiasts.
Yes.
This is one last interesting fact. The drummer in his band, both live and then on this new record, He's played on several Vineyard Worship projects. So we had him play on like studio version of Cherry Blossoms, You Don't Have to Lose Heart, a couple of the songs last summer with Tim Brown. That's all Aaron.
Sterling, right?
Yeah, that's
Is that
right.
his last name?
Yeah.
Yes, that's crazy. Now you just got to get Steve Jordan and Pino
One day.
on some records. Yeah, that'd
One
be
day.
sweet.
Well,
But
I'll
that's
also,
so cool.
since we're on this, I'll also say everybody needs to go follow Aaron Sterling on Instagram. Even if you're not a musician, he's hilarious. He's one of the best Instagram follows out there. The man is genuinely funny. So look up Sterloid. I think that's his tag.
I have looked at his Instagram once.
Yeah, you need to go back. It's genuinely funny.
I will.
All right, okay, let's shift gears. Let's do the thing we always do here on the Ferment. Kyle, tell us where you came from. How'd you grow up?
Oh man. I was born in Alabama. So I was born on the state line of Alabama and Georgia in a little town called Phoenix City. My mom pretty much raised me and my sister as a single mom for most of our lives. I had a couple father figures in my life, but most of the time it was just me, my mom, and my sister. And so, growing up, didn't have a lot of money. I think now that I'm, older, I actually appreciated growing up that way. It just makes you realize, and you don't take for granted some of these things in life. And so that was kind of the situation growing up, and we kind of floated around in Alabama and Georgia for my younger years, and ultimately we ended up in the Champaign-Urbana area in Illinois because my mom's parents lived here. And so we reached a point where my mom didn't have really another place to turn, and so just financially we were just at that place. And so my grandparents were a little bit more, they were just stable and just were able to provide for us. And so we even lived with them for a few years. And then that's really where I grew up, is in a little town called Mahomet, Illinois. It's about 10 minutes from where I'm at right now. And just moved, and I moved like 3 times when I was in second grade. So I actually had to repeat second grade. I missed a few months of school there. And so, yeah, I would grow up, and it was cool. And I was involved with a lot of sports. But I always had this love for singing. And so, and even when we were in Georgia, my mom was working for a radio station, and one day she came home with this cardboard box. I can actually still see it in my mind, and it was filled with all these CDs. And this is probably, I was first or second grade at this time. And I just remember going into the box, and they were actual CDs. And I had a CD Walkman with the over-the-head headphones, that kind of thing. It was a Sony. And I just grabbed like whatever CD art, like album cover grabbed my eye. I just grabbed that CD, and I would just listen to it. There's all these things I never heard before. And so I really grew up with kind of having this wide range of interesting influence musically. And so I was just always listening to this Walkman. I would listen to it as I went to sleep at night, listening to different things like Usher and Backstreet Boys and even Nelly. So, I was a little too young for that, but my mom just brought home this box. She didn't know what was in it.
Cut my teeth on Nelly.
Oh yeah. I saw him live, the whole 9 yards. Crazy. So yeah, just growing up, and then always had this love for singing. And then when I eventually made it to the Vineyard Urbana, I was in 5th grade, and a guy named Jim Wood was the worship pastor. And I think we came on like a Christmas Eve service, and it was a little bit more production-y on those services here. And so Jim Wood was guitar soloing and stuff. And I had just never seen worship like what I was witnessing. And I was like, this is so cool. Because I should note that I'd been in church my whole life. I just always been in church, but I'd never seen worship like this. And people were like engaging with it. It wasn't like they weren't just listening and they weren't singing to like an open like hymn book or anything like that. It was just I'd never seen anything like it. And so I told my mom, I was like, I don't care if you don't come back to this church, like I will find a way to get here every Sunday. And so it would become our church home. And then Jim Wood actually required that you learn an instrument if you wanted to lead worship. And so I thought guitar was the coolest. And this was pre-John Mayer.
Okay.
And so, yeah. And so I picked up the guitar. I absolutely hated it. My fingers were hurting. I wanted to be good right away. Just wasn't. And I think I eventually just like quit. I just like didn't want to do it. So I was just kind of at a crossroads. One day I walked into my friend's house, and his dad was watching John Mayer, Where the Light Is. and he was playing Neon, which is crazy. And I saw him. He was by himself playing in front of an arena full of people, and my jaw dropped because I didn't know that guitar and singing could be like, it could look that cool, or like it could be like that or sound like that. And when I heard that, I was like, who is that? And I just listened to all of that whole record, and it really just sent me full forward into just learning guitar and playing guitar. I was obsessed with it. I would come home after school, actually after basketball practice, and just play as much as possible. My parents ended up getting me an amp, a little Vox amp, and a little Stratocaster Squire, and didn't really have lessons or anything, but I was just messing around until something sounded good, and I would just play. And then, so it was 14 when I started leading worship here in the youth ministries and all kinds of different things. So
I love
that's
that.
kind of
I love that whole story. I mean, what a beautiful story. But I love several things there, but one of the things that kind of sticks out to me is just how powerful it is. Like when you walk into that room and you see John Mayer on the screen and you're like, oh, I get this whole thing, you know?
Yeah. Right.
And how powerful having a vision is for allowing us to get through something like painful practice or the process of becoming better. We need we need a vision for it. We need
absolutely
something that says, oh, this does lead to somewhere, something that gives you the encouragement to push through even just painful fingers or just not being very good, because that's like an internal pain, isn't it?
Right. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. So when you are 14, you see this, you just start practicing. Are you mostly just practicing John Mayer, or are you playing like worship tunes too? What are you doing?
So basically, I had, when iHomes were a thing, like iPods.
Oh
I
yeah.
had like it was like you just set your little iPod on top of it, and so I had like this huge range of music on my iPod. Like just being like growing up in church, I would like not always love Christian music, but I would find different things, especially when I started listening to playing guitar. I even found myself loving like Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, different things, like different people like that. But then in the Christian world, like bands like Thousand Foot Crutch, Skillet, but then even I loved like Casting Crowns. So like some of those songs were just like so catchy and so beautiful to me, those melodies. And so I had that. I had hip hop music on there, all this random stuff. So I would hit play on these songs, and I would get my little Vox amp out, and I would like, at this point, I would just like stick my finger on like the B string or the E string, the high E string, and I would just stick it on there, and I would just slide my finger up and down on the neck until I found like spots where I'm like, oh, that's in key, and that one's in key. And I would just like literally do that. And then it got to where I was like jumping to other strings very slowly and then I learned what hammer-ons and pull-offs were. Then I was basically just getting to this point where I was just improvising, didn't know what key these songs were in or anything like that, but I would just find that first note on the guitar, and then I would just kind of know for the most part where I could go next and where I couldn't go. And so that's kind of what got me just like thrown into guitar. I literally only had like 2 or 3 lessons where I learned like your G chord, your D, your E minor, and your C, and that was really it. And so it was like I would just learn these different songs, and then I remember my first audition I actually didn't pass. Like Jim Wood was like, "Hey, you're not ready yet." Like, and then in that time is when I saw John Mayer, and then I was like, he didn't realize I was spending all this time playing. And the next time he heard me, he was like, "You've been practicing." And so, yeah, it was just like that. Like I was like doing more of these complicated things that were kind of outside the worship scene. And so then when I came back to these just G, D minor, G, D, E minor, C chords, it was like, it just kind of was a little bit easier at that point. But yeah, that's kind of how that happened.
I think that's one of the reasons I try to tell worship leaders, anytime when I'm in a group of worship leaders, look out for those like 14 and 15-year-old kids in your youth group, because if they get interested, if they get motivated, they have the time, right? Like your story is exactly like so many people's stories. You know, I'm at home, come home after basketball practice. What am I going to do? You know,
Right.
I
Exactly.
want to play music. And
Exactly.
so I love that story because I think it's something that's, I don't know, it's applicable even now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, okay. So let's talk about singing here for a second.
Okay.
I think you have a great voice. I think you are one of the best male singers in the Vineyard, and that's on record.
Dang.
Okay.
Dang.
But
Thank
one of
you.
the things I've noticed about your voice, Kyle, and Casey and I've talked about this before as well, is there's such a pop sensibility to it.
hmm
I think you can sing whatever you want to sing, right? And it'll sound great. But there's something about your voice that just feels like pop radio to me. I was going to ask you, like, what are your influences? I'm assuming that maybe goes back to that box of CDs that your mom brought home. Where did it come from?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of it, like the biggest first influence was the Backstreet Boys. I can still see the CD. It's like, I think it came out in 2000. It's called Millennium. And I just remember, I haven't seen the photo in a long time, but I just know that they're all wearing like these white suits. Like they're all white suits. And there was just songs on there. And I think I just loved the song so much that I didn't even realize that what like a vocal run was even then, but I was just trying to sing the songs just like they were. And so it started just bleeding into other things. And then there's even like 98 Degrees, that band, like all these like boy bands. And because my mom worked at this radio station, we got like free tickets to a lot of things. So I went to this 98 Degrees concert. I met, what's his name? Nick Lachey, backstage. People like that. And then like, I don't know. So I was just listening to that, but then I started listening to like Usher. I started listening to Chris Brown, Justin Bieber. I'm unashamed Bieber fan, especially like now that he's really finding his own voice.
I hear it in your voice, though. I wasn't going to drop all of that in there. I figured maybe that's what was going to come out
Oh yeah.
when I asked you about that, but I hear it there. There's just like a modern pop sensibility to your voice, and it makes a lot of sense that it would come from those kind of places. I guess since the Backstreet Boys and maybe even 98 Degrees were some of your initial influences, I guess I'm wondering this. Is that where you learned how to sing harmony?
Dude, I don't actually know where I
Okay.
learned to sing harmony. I think
Did you? Let me ask this then. Did you
yeah,
did you listen to the record and were you singing melody, or did you ever try to sing those other parts?
I would sing just melody, but I would realize that if I couldn't go where they were going, like if they went to a high range, um, I would just somehow sing the harmony. I don't. So I've never been like trained in harmony. That's been something that I've really had to work at. There are interesting harmonies that just come to my mind naturally, but they're not necessarily the ones that like in the worship scene too that we're like, oh, we're not really looking for that one though. Like so
Yeah.
but then like it'll just kind of be like bringing the harmony home. Like I'll hear parts of it, but then when the next line, the melody will do something I wasn't expecting or something, and I'll have to kind of figure that out. So the harmony stuff, man, I'm still figuring that stuff out, as you saw last week.
No, well, you know what? Since you mentioned it, we may as well jump right into it. Last week, you and another crew of worship leaders from the Vineyard, we were up in Maine tracking a new project at the Anchor Studio, one that I am very, very excited about, by the way.
Yes.
But there was this moment after we had done the main tracking. I think on Thursday, we just kind of went back and did a few overdubs, and mostly what Josh and Carl, the producers, were tracking on Thursday was most of the harmony stuff.
Yeah.
And so there's this moment. It was you, it was Sarah Pemberton, it was Annabeth Morgan, Tiadra, Alexander Faison. All of you were in the room, and you're kind of working out the exact harmonies.
Yeah.
And it was, for me, it was very inspirational. Even though
Yeah.
there was something to it that was sort of technical, it was inspirational because all of you, all 5 or 6 of you, were standing around, and Casey's there too. Of course, Casey can sing the phone book, and you're figuring out like, okay, no, I need to be here. Okay, you need to be there. Let's do a third part. And I don't know. I listened to it, and I was very, very just touched by not only the way you guys were working, but how good it came out. So can you talk to me about that moment?
Yeah, I mean, those moments I've learned, well, I would say studio moments. I've only had a couple of them, but those moments I always walk away feeling super inspired and super just, I would say challenged, because I'm like, I think it's really easy, like when you're when you're kind of like in a group of musicians all the time or worship team members where not necessarily saying like you're the best, but like when you're not, when you're in the studio like that, you are coming into a world of people who are like, they do this on the daily and this is like their profession or
Yeah.
whatever it is. This is how they make money. And so whenever I'm around like really talented people like that, I always walk away feeling inspired, but just super like stretched and just ready to get better at my craft and want to grow and things like that. And so that's one of the things. And then even with the harmony moment, it's always I'm always really thankful when I can hear the harmony, and then I just like I'm doing whatever I can to just hold on to that harmony while everyone else is singing something totally different. And I'm just like, all I'm doing is my mind is just focusing on remembering that harmony. But then I will say too, when we were just like doing the overdubs again and again and like, working on room and mic technique, all that stuff, and capturing it, and you're just kind of like, man, I hope this is all worth it. And then, you listen back to it like 30 minutes later and my mind was just like, I was like, man, let's do more.
That's right.
What else can we do? What else can we do?
My mind was blown.
cool.
I mean, because it was so good as soon as Josh pulled the faders back up,
Yes.
and it's just one of
Yep.
those things in the studio where if it's good at the beginning,
Right.
it's going to be amazing in the end, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, for
Yeah,
me,
it was like angelic.
yeah, it was killer. For me, though, the studio, there's a couple things that you said that just sort of sparked ideas in me. The studio is inspiring and intimidating
Mhm.
because it's inspiring because you do work with people who this is what they do, and so there's a comfort level and just a technique. Like people are good, and it's when you
Yeah.
get around people who are really great, it brings out greatness in you. But then it's also intimidating because the studio is like this magnifying glass.
Yes.
And it just highlights everything about like your performance, your vocal, your, I'm not even talking about like whether you're in tune or on the note or not, but just like
Yeah.
if you feel a little insecure in the moment, you hear it in the take.
Yep.
It's there, and
Yep.
and so there's something about that moment that is, for me, it's always intimidating and at the same
Yep.
time inspiring. And there's
Absolutely.
something about the studio that causes you to grow.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And it was kind of like you have those moments where you're like, I mean, I would tell Josh and Carl, the producers, I'm like, please don't solo me in this part. Like, you do not want to solo me there. Like, do not listen to me in
Yeah,
that part.
yeah,
But it's so good for you though, too.
it is. Well, you go home better. You do.
Absolutely.
It just
Absolutely.
refines you, because a lot of times in worship, and I'm talking about all churches, little churches, big churches, or whatever. Even if you have a really great team, good musicians, great sound system, and all the things, in a church
Yep.
that loves to sing,
Mhm.
the Sunday morning experience of it's live, there's a band, there's
Yep.
reverb on your voice, there's a big room it's
Oh,
going
yeah.
into, and then maybe there's hundreds, or if it's a really big church, maybe there's 1,000 people singing back to you. You lose touch with how it feels in your body and what it actually is coming out of your mouth, right?
Oh, yeah. 100%.
And you get in the studio and you're like, oh, this is what I sound like.
I'm not as
And
good as I thought I was.
I need to pay attention, right? Like I need to pay
Yeah.
really close attention. And then anyway, for me, I when I say pay attention, I mean like I'm beginning to focus in on how do I sound and how does it feel in my body? So you're getting more direct feedback on that. And
Right.
it just helps.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it can easily become that in my world here. I mean, our sound engineer, I tell him, I'm like, hey, I want this place to sound like a mini arena. Like, and so he knows I'm a big fan of all the reverb and the big sound and all that kind of stuff. So I
Big chorus.
totally,
Let's tap in the delay.
yes,
Woo.
totally.
It's
We're not on
Coldplay.
we're not on that auto tune and live level or anything, but he knows I like that reverb. So
Reverb covers a multitude of sins, Kyle.
amen.
Anyway, I just thought you guys were great last week. I was
Thank
really
you.
inspired by just the recording and the moments, but that day, that Thursday, when you guys were picking parts and working it out together, I thought it was great.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay.
Same.
Any other favorite moments from last week?
Probably, I don't know how often this happens with when you guys are doing records, but it kind of seems like the production or like the arrangements are usually for the most part pretty set when someone like me comes in, for vocal stuff. But was it Dwelling Place that it seemed like a full on moment was created like in the studio in that hour of like getting ready to track. And so, I don't like know Casey like extremely well. I got to know him pretty well, but to do that whole track and then to turn around and see his eyes like full of tears was like just seeing him impacted me. And so,
Yeah.
that was a really special moment because when people will hear the lyrics of that song eventually when it comes out, but just the whole like picture that song paints and the whole meaning of it. And then there's something that happens in that instrumental section. And when you come back to the lyrics, it is a really beautiful thing. And so I would say that moment, just seeing even the team being impacted by it really impacted me. And so that's when I was like, wow, this is super special what we're doing here. So
it felt like a holy moment. And yeah, I'll just piggyback off of something you said there. If Casey's crying, you better be crying.
Oh yeah.
Because Casey's been doing this for a really long time,
Yeah.
He's been in a ton of moments, and if Casey's feeling it, it's real. So
yeah, amen. I totally believe that.
It felt like a holy moment, though. It really did. And there's a lot going on there. We're a lot of instruments, a lot of cables and mics and people, and, and production, and sometimes those realities keep us in a more, I don't even know the right word, technical space.
Yeah.
But the band and the leaders, everybody broke through all of that, and I could feel it.
Yeah. Amen.
Hey everyone, Casey Corum here, producer of the podcast. I hope you're enjoying this episode with Kyle Howard. More to come in just a second. I just wanted to quickly remind you about our episode from last week, an interview with Phil and Jan Strout, retiring national directors for Vineyard USA. This was a really special episode, and we wanted to make sure that you didn't miss it. It's season 3, episode 30. Find it and give it a listen. You won't be sorry. All right, back to our conversation with Kyle Howard.
Let's switch gears again, because I want to talk to you a little bit about maybe building a worship community.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is just like observation stuff, like outside observation.
Mhm.
I've been around your Urbana crew, not a ton, but a good bit.
Yeah.
I've been around you and Daniel and Carolyn and just your whole crew. I mean, I've been to your church several times. One of the things that I've sort of picked up on is that you guys, you don't just have a team. Sometimes I encounter groups of people and I'm like, oh, they're really good at what they do. It feels professional, and not even in a bad way. I'm not even using that word in a bad way, but it just feels like, oh, things are clean. Things are tight. But I get some of those notes with you guys, but I get something that's like beyond that. And it's like, oh, this is personal. This is like, these are friends. Yeah. These are people who've been doing this together for a moment. This is not a production company. This is a community. So
absolutely,
I'd love for you to just talk to me about building a worship community, not just scheduling people. Because I sometimes I think about I think about worship bands, and I think about planning center, and you're just texting people. Can you give yes or no? Please reply. And you're filling the schedule, and you're filling holes, and people are dropping out and blocking out. But how do you build a community, not just a team that shows up on Sunday?
Great question. And I've purposefully, some of the team has wanted to use Planning Center for multiple different reasons. but I have shied away because I have that fear of what I've heard about, like, you send out an invite and they can reject it. So we're kind of old school here. We use Google Sheets for like our main schedule, and then we use worshipteam.com for all of our database for all of our songs.
Shout out to worshipteam.com.
That's right. And so we love it. Just even we can be a little spontaneous sometimes, and or we like to change out songs or keys really quickly. And so we're fortunate enough and blessed enough to have where we've got an iPad, so we're not wasting all this paper.
Yeah.
I don't even want to know how much money we've saved on paper actually now.
Yeah.
But if I change a key on my iPad and people just hit refresh and then they have the new keys, so that's kind of nice. But anyway, we're definitely family is the number one goal, and a lot of times it takes a lot of intentionality with family. And so even one of the first things that comes to mind is when even our rehearsals, I don't like to have a long rehearsal. I don't like to kill people. For some reason, the volunteer mindset is like the first thing I think about. Like, people on my team, they're not sitting at church all day, that kind of thing, and they're ready for rehearsal. We've got people with full-time jobs, and they have 4 or 5 kids, and they're coming here right after work. And so I like to do 90-minute rehearsals if I can. And so a lot of times we'll do 6:30 to 8 on Thursdays. But once people are sound checked and they can hear themselves in their ears and all that, we just gather together in a circle on the stage. We put our instruments down. I'll invite the tech team, the sound, projection, lights, whoever, to come up and pray. And so that's a time where, I'll use it as an opportunity to say, we could go around and do a high-low. What was your high of the week?
Yeah, definitely.
What was your low of the week? Or some kind of icebreaker type thing, or be like, hey, who needs prayer? And so in those moments, it's kind of you're kind of waiting for a second, and I'll just sit there too and just give it some time. But eventually someone will say, this is going on in my life, and they will ask prayer. And those times, man, have been so impactful for our team, because when we start with that, and I won't stop it too. If it takes 30, 40 minutes, I don't care if we have less rehearsal time. That is the rehearsal time, in my opinion, because it's the thing I've learned is on top of family, it's also shared encounters. So there's something special about, obviously, when you have an encounter with the Lord yourself, but when other people share in that, or they see that encounter, it's I don't know, man, I can't even put words to it. It just takes that group to a different place with each other. And so whenever we spend that time together on Thursdays praying, whatever, it totally translates on Sunday. We take it into the weekend. And I'm just a huge believer in, when the Lord sees unity, he can't help himself but just to put his presence on it, or I don't know, bless that time, bless that group. And so and even back to the Thursday thing too, is sometimes I'll pick up on someone on the team, I can just kind of tell they've had a week or whatever. And, I don't know how I'll get them to this point, but, kind of put them in the hot seat or whatever. And we'll just, hey guys, let's bless and let's encourage this person. And, ask the Lord for a word for them, or, some prophetic word, whatever it is. And that person will go from the pit to just wow, I'm seeing things clearly again. And so even just stuff like that, and we like to have fun, just hanging out, where I like to be intentional about doing these things called team nights or team gathering type things, where, a Sunday after church, we have this courtyard area and a grill, and we'll just grill out, and the team will invite their family and all their kids, and we'll have hamburgers and hot dogs together. There's no agenda.
Yeah.
We're just hanging out, that kind of stuff.
Well, Kyle, one of the things that you just said I really like is, part of what you're highlighting is the opportunity to use rehearsal as a time that's not just for music.
Yeah.
So we need to have maybe one way to build more of a worship community is to have an imagination for that moment to be more. It could be prayer, it could be sharing. Right. And
right.
And as I reflect on the years that I was leading worship, I do that a lot less now. One of the things I think I definitely messed up on messed up is maybe too strong a word, but an opportunity I didn't take hold of was the idea that rehearsal could be something more.
Right.
Yeah, I
Totally.
kept it pretty focused on like, okay, let's learn our parts, let's learn the turns, and let's get better. But I love hearing that. Maybe we could have an imagination for something extra.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the fear too, is like, which I've totally fallen into so many times, but if like, if we don't use this time, like people aren't going to be prepared for Sunday. And a lot of times I've learned that because of that time together and praying and whatever it is, just hanging out, it makes them want to be more invested. And so really the goal is that they would come to rehearsal already knowing all the parts and stuff.
That's right.
So I've just noticed though that like people are just more invested when they know that it's not just like, and it's not sound like this, you're not using them. Like, you want to be a family, you want to be a crew, you want to be a group of people and community. And so when you take that time and people are like, they realize that this is more than just playing songs, like this is a family, and what we're doing is really important and it's a high honor, they want to put in the time and they want to put in the work. And so they kind of, not always, but they seem to come together in the overall goal of what you're wanting.
Well, I think it's just true that people will give to moments where they know they're valued, right?
Right.
Yeah, and just, whether it's a prayer time or just a moment to share, a moment where they're being heard from their voice and not just their instrument,
Right.
like their life, it causes people to realize, oh, I'm valued. I'm not just the keyboard player this week.
Right.
They're not just using me for my utility, but there's some sort of exchange. So yeah,
Yep.
I think that's true. When I'm cared for, I want to give.
Right.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, because one of the things I'm hoping for, not just here at my church, but all over the country in the Vineyard, is I'm hoping that people would not just build Sunday morning moments, but they would build like worship communities, because I think the beautiful stuff comes out of that.
Amen, man. Totally.
Well, that's beautiful. Okay, let's shift gears again, Kyle.
Yeah, let's do it.
Talk to me about what God's doing in your life right now. I mean, you've been leading worship for a while, but you're still young. What's going on? What's God been doing in you or at your church? I'm interested.
Yeah, totally. Man, it's so funny because I don't know why, and I haven't even really talked about this a ton with people, but I feel like, when people talk about, other Christians talk about, really taking time to rest, it would kind of like, not that I would be like, oh, that's dumb or anything like that, but I'm like, there's no time to rest. Like, let's do these things. Like, let's go after these things. And I feel like the Lord is like, you need to learn to rest. Like, honestly, that's where I've been at. And so I was just talking about this a couple weeks ago. Like, I have been really intentional about, in my car, that's a time where I love to listen to music. I have been listening to nothing. I like no podcasts, no music. And that is a time where I have noticed that either my road rage will come forth, or I will literally be talking to the Lord and I will pray for people as I drive by them. Like, just it. And so that's, and that's the goal too. It's like, if there is some kind of road rage thing that wants to come out, it's like, I'm going to obviously notice it because there's no music or anything going on. And so those are times, honestly, obviously when I'm driving to work in the morning, where it's just like a recentering for me. And then even driving home, like, it's just no music. And it's just, that has been a time where, I'll even just keep driving sometimes. Like, if I'm almost home or whatever, I'm like, hey, like, let's just keep driving. And those have been just real moments of just sitting with the Lord and just, I don't know, I'm very like visual. And so like, I'll see moments with the Lord, or I'll see moments I feel like that are in the future, or the Lord will take me to a time in my past. And those are just like really interesting encounters for me, and just ways of communicating with God that I have found just being really impactful for me. But really just being intentional about resting. And so not overcommitting myself. I'm a people pleaser at heart, to a default, I guess. And, when there's this worship event going on, like, or, there's this thing that people want me to do or whatever, I'm just like, I actually can't say yes to that. And that's been new for me. I've just defaulted to just saying yes and yes, and it'll just fill up, and then I'll just be like, there's just no time. Like I'll just be like, there's no time for anything else. And so those are just a couple things right now that
No,
are.
it's good. I mean, those are things for all of us to learn,
Mhm.
and we have to like relearn it as well sometimes.
Yeah,
I
totally.
do think there's something about when we're young. One of the things that we tend to do, and I don't even think it's necessarily bad, is we do say yes, don't we?
Hmm.
We're like,
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
yeah, I'm being asked, yes, yes. Whether we're people pleasers or not, we're just like,
Yeah.
if you want to use the word ambitious or just like, yeah, or just excited, like, yeah, I'm so stoked.
Right. Right.
And then we kind of have to find out what our limits are.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and you will.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering because you mentioned rest, and I can't think of rest without thinking about limits or like hitting the wall.
Hmm.
Have you found out where your limits are, Kyle?
I have, and I would say it
Yeah.
honestly, it wasn't necessarily like a moment where it was like everything around me crashed or anything like that.
Yeah.
There would just be things that I would notice that would just stress me out when I'm like, this should not be stressing me out right now. And yeah, like I would just like find myself just like not saying yes to things just to like, because it would just like the thought of it would just stress me out. And like, because I was just literally like just pushing myself way too hard. Because I do like when it comes to like a capacity level of like doing things, I have a very low capacity until I figure something out, like until I figure out the system or the method. And then once I figure out how it works, I can do it, and I will run it to the ground, and I can do that, and I can have multiple things like that where I'm just kind of all at once. And so I don't know, because then it also just it translates into worship leading too. Because when you're just in a place of like, you just notice that certain things that are, stressing you out or making you angry or just little stupid stuff, you kind of know something's going on. And so that can easily translate into worship leading. And with worship, I've just like found that in my life, if I don't have that connection, that's always like in my car, like if I don't have that kind of stuff, and it's like not a continual conversation with the Lord throughout my day, I notice that my worship leading, it's not that like God's not there, obviously, like he's there always, but just that connection point, it's so important to kind of keep that thing moving and fueled up. And so just stepping on the stage on Sunday, it's a thing that you don't turn on for Sunday. It's just always been on, that kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but
No, I think so. I think it answers it brilliantly, and I can't help but think about even the life of Jesus. So Jesus would do all kinds of stuff, right? He would show up somewhere and he would heal somebody, and there's a few places where it would say something to the effect of they would bring everybody who's sick or who's oppressed by an evil spirit to Jesus, and he'd heal them. And in almost every occasion, the thing that follows next is Jesus is running off by himself to pray.
yeah.
So
Right.
there's like, there's the Jesus, and I'm using air quotes here, the Jesus who's on, he's
Right.
doing his Jesus
Right.
stuff. But then there's also the Jesus who's like retreating,
Right.
and he's not,
Mm-hmm.
and if it were me, I guess if it were me and I, gave a good word and prayed for some people and everybody got healed, and then they bring me everyone who's sick and I
Right.
pray for them and they all get healed, I'm thinking, man, get me a bus. It's time for worldwide. I've got a platform or something. And,
Yeah.
and Jesus would never do that.
Right. Right.
So there's something about that, I can't help but think of even when you're sharing this, it sort of like honors our own humanity. We can't just be on all the time.
Right.
We can say yes to the point that I've got nothing to give anymore.
Right. Totally.
Yeah.
Amen.
Well, that's a thing for us. That's a thing for all of us to learn. I
Mhm.
guess I'm also wondering if rest has been a word for you lately. What about Sabbath? Like taking your day off. What do you do? What do you do on your day off? You just
Oh, dude. On my
walk
day
the
off,
dog? What
man,
do you do?
I feel like I don't do anything, honestly. I've been a big golfer since I was in like junior high, but Hadn't played a lot of golf this year, so tomorrow's my day off, so I am playing golf for just like the 4th time this year. So things like that, and man, I'll try to just sleep in a little bit longer. Yeah,
Nothing wrong with that.
I really don't do anything. Something that's been really good for me is my wife and we go on walks, and I always I'm like, hey, let's go on a long walk tonight. Like, let's just and we'll just walk for, I don't know, an hour or more, and that's there's no, sometimes like a lot of times we'll leave our phones at home, and just talk. There's no other thing to do. It's just, so that's been really restful.
I love the walk thing. This took me, Kyle, this is good you're onto this. This took me probably a decade of marriage before I got this, right? I noticed that if I will take a walk with Heather, I've noticed that I'm able to access what I'm really feeling and thinking, and I'm able to share it while I'm walking more than if we were,
Yes.
sitting on the couch together, or like sitting across from each other at the table, or if we're trying to
Yes.
work something out, whether it's a fight or maybe it's not even a fight. We're just trying to work
Yep.
something out. I just
Yep.
noticed I'm my best self if we're walking, and I don't know what
Yep.
that is. It's
I
some
know,
kind of
man.
voodoo, but it's real.
It is. I totally understand what you're saying.
hmm So 2 thumbs up on the take a walk with
Absolutely.
your
Go on a
significant
walk.
other. Yeah, that's good, dude. Well, Kyle, listen, I got another appointment coming up. I got to shut this down, dog.
All right, man.
We'll just have to do this
It's-
again.
Yeah, man. It's
Well,
been awesome.
Yeah, listen, just want to say before we get off here, love who you are. I love what you do. I love what you bring, and I love the crew that you help lead and serve in Urbana.
Thanks,
We
man.
just we love it and appreciate it.
Thanks, man. It was an honor to talk with you today.
Yep, come back.
All right, bro.
Peace.
Hey everyone, Casey Corum here, producer of the podcast. Thanks for listening. As always, if you've been enjoying the podcast, here's a few ways you can help us. First of all, leave us a review on the podcast platform of your choice. This helps more people find us. Also, connect with us on social media. Instagram at the Ferment Podcast and Twitter at FermentCast. All right, everyone, thanks for listening. See you next week. Peace.